to use suffering from California. So maybe in a minute we'll show you our view that we had to suffer with for the last couple of days. But we're really excited about this book that we're talking about today. It's a book on marriage, and it's called How We Love. And it's one of the probably most influential books in the last year of our lives that it really meant a lot. And it was able to also give us some practical changes and become maybe aware. You know, awareness was probably one of the biggest things that we took away from this video, or from this book. So, I mean, do you have any other quick starts on the book before we dive into it?
No, what you said was really good. Really eye-opening, just a little bit different than most of the marriage books that we've read or listened to so far.
Right. So, one of the things really that the book starts with is it talks about a comfort question, right? And a lot of what they do in the book is take you back to certain items that happened when you were a child, how you were brought up, how those in authority responded to you in certain crisis situations. And so one of them is, and we'll get to where this kind of plays in a little bit, but one of them is go back and take a minute, think back when you were a child and something really major happened in your life, right? Where maybe not super traumatic, but even if it was super traumatic, you know, and then just take a minute and think about how those others around you responded and what kind of comfort. So usually you're looking for some type of comfort in those situations, and what kind of comfort did they give you? How did they respond, right? And what that does is what they're pointing out in this book is that is starting to form who you are and how you respond to others in an instance like that, right? And I think you had a good quote on that, you know, before we dive into those love languages.
Yeah, well, I just like how it's worded in the book because the question makes you think. It says, can you recall of a time can you recall of a time being comforted as a child after a time of emotional distress? And after, what came to my mind when you were saying that is now I'm looking at how I react to Grace and Gwen, and even how I'm imprinting on Gwen, who's just a year old now.
So, you know, one of the things we actually just heard this week at like a seminar that we were attending, and I don't know that this statistic was in this book, but it doesn't change it, that it's real, that 90% of who you are and what makes you up as an individual is already formed before conception, which is really, really powerful. Because and it all goes back to the way we respond to things. That emotional part of us is usually already formed. And so sometimes we respond a certain way and it didn't even come from us. It wasn't even something from our experience. It could have been something from our parents' experience during that item. And this is how it happens when we're a child and we go through something really difficult or a really hard time of comfort. How others responded, right or wrong, you know, no fault to our parents, just the way they responded is going to directly affect, you know, that. So here's a practical example of that, because it may be a little difficult to understand. So right now, I think the biggest thing in Grace's life is taking a nap. So she doesn't want to take a nap every day. So what happens what does she do when you want to take a nap?
Oh, it's just instant whining and crying.
Which I'm sure is every child's reaction at some point, right? And so at least my initial response before reading this book was, you know, you're going to take a nap, okay? I don't want to hear about it. I don't want you to cry about it. Go upstairs, take a nap. And that was it. Well, what this book really helped me understand is that taking a nap right now might be the most important thing in Grace's life. And she's bringing to me and showing emotion on the most important thing in her life right now. And how am I training her to respond, right? I'm training her to don't talk about it, stop doing, just do what you're supposed to do, okay, and deal with it yourself. And so it was a real, you know, I guess revelation to me that when she's 13, 14, 15, I'm really going to care what that most important thing is in her life. And I'm not going to want her to go take care of that on her own. I would like her to still come to me, tell me what she's feeling, so we can go through it together. And so that's a practical example of kind of where the book starts and helps you paint the picture without spending too much time on the past and dwelling on it, but helps you understand how you love and how you're trying to portray love, right? And we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I actually thought about maybe we'll even do like individual videos after about these certain love styles where we could actually spend a few more minutes on the childhood portion of it as well, because we can't really get into that on this video. But we're just going to kind of go through a couple of the love styles. We'll talk about ours real quick so you can kind of see how important it is to know your love style and also your spouse's love style. And I'm sure there's a lot of other books out there that name similar things, but at least this one was the most, it really made us aware of it and really resonated with us. So why don't you talk about the first one or two?
Well, I mean, how we get this love style is we were imprinted.
Right.
So the first one is that we're going to talk about is the avoider. An avoider is someone with very few emotions and tends to be private, self-sufficient, doesn't ask for any emotional commitment from anybody, very task-oriented, high achiever, happy when people around me are, or happy around them when they don't, so when the people around them are happy and they don't want a lot from them. And one more, there's a lot of different ones, but one more is resent spouse for wanting more from them.
Yeah, so, and this one I found out is myself, right? So I'm the avoider. And what that means is, and I hated that at first, but what it really means is that you avoid emotion at like all costs. And so practical example, and all these love styles again go back to your childhood and how certain things were responded to. And so for me, and I wouldn't change this to this day, but every time I was given like a task to do by my dad or my mom, my dad would, when I would come back to him for help, he would always say, well, figure it out. I have a garage full of tools, just go figure it out. And I loved that, and I don't think I would change that at all. But what I realized is just I adopted that into every area of my life. So when I go through a hard time, or when I'm struggling with something, I want to just go figure it out, and I want to zone in, not talk to anybody, and just figure it out. And what that did is put a wall up between us, and we'll talk about her style later, but it put up a wall because I'm avoiding emotion. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to go figure it out. But it really put up a barrier between us and our relationship on certain things. When it was something very important, something that's a big deal, my reaction was always hone in, zone everything out, avoid all the emotions, avoid everything, and just get it done until you figure out a solution. And again, nothing wrong with these love styles. It just helps you identify how you're trying to love. That was my way of showing love. I'm going to show you love, but I'm just going to figure out this big problem, and you're not going to have to worry about it. I don't want to talk about it. I don't care how it makes me feel. I'm just going to go figure it out. And why don't we just lead it to yours, because that's kind of next, and we'll kind of talk about how that could be a problem.
Yeah. All right. So I am a pleaser, and so a pleaser is a person who was called like the good kid, struggles with and fear of criticism and rejection, seeks deeper connection with their spouse. And at times it's hard to be emotional or physically distant from their spouse. It's difficult to say no, generally don't feel angry, and if they do, they try to think of something that will get them out of that mood.
So, okay, give the real definition of it.
Okay, so as a people pleaser, I want everybody to be happy around me. I don't want anybody to be upset with me. And so knowing that I want people to be happy, I try to gauge how they're feeling by asking, how are you doing? How was your day? Trying to get emotions out of them. Which is funny because I'm married to a man that doesn't want to give emotions. So when I'm constantly like, John, how was your day? And I've asked him that for the third or fourth time and he still says, good. It's not good enough for me. So I have to keep asking him, which gets him frustrated.
And really, you know, it doesn't show you that I love you because you're trying to gauge, am I happy with you? Mm-hmm. Am I happy with how I came home? Am I happy with everything that's going on? And I may be thinking about some big thing that I have, you know, task in my mind that I have to figure out, and I don't want to show emotion at all. So me trying to focus on that and not show emotion is showing her, you know, what she's seeing is she's not making me happy, and there's a problem here, and it completely changes her mood. Mm-hmm. And so again, these aren't like right or wrong. These are just certain ways that now I understand, you know, Joanne will gauge her, you know, how well she's doing by the countenance of me and how open I am, because she wants to know that she's there. She wants to know that she's making me happy, right? And my avoider would never show that. So it was very difficult, and it definitely put up walls.
Yeah, being a people pleaser, I don't know if every people person is like this, people pleaser person, but I can very easily change my mood with what's around me. So like he said, like if he's kind of distant, then it makes me feel distant and sad. If someone around me is very happy, then I just want to jump in and be happy with them.
So you can kind of see, and we'll briefly go through the other ones. Obviously, these are the two that are the realest to us. So we're trying to give an example of how, again, there's nothing wrong with the style. It's just if you can learn your style and learn your spouse's style or your significant other's style, that's going to really help your communication. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but at least I'm going to understand now when she's asking me that, you know, what's going on there.
Yeah, and how I feel like I became a people pleaser. I am number 4 of 5 children, so I saw my parents, you know, disciplining or getting on the older kids because they were misbehaving or having too much fun, and I just picked up on how they felt when they had to do that, and I didn't want my parents to feel that way. So I feel like that's why I became a people pleaser.
So another one is called vacillator. And so a vacillator is a very passionate person. Mm-hmm. So they're showing strong emotions. You know, I'll read a couple. They get angry when my expectations as the vacillator aren't met. They get offended when others are not emotionally available for them. And they're very conflictive responses that even confuse them. Others around them say, I have to walk on eggshells, you know, because you don't know what's going to set, you know, the vacillator off. And again, it's not a bad thing, but they're very passionate and they're very, you know, they're very intense. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so when others would feel sad, like a pleaser maybe, the vacillator feels anger inside of them because they're very passionate people.
Now, I actually have a little bit of vacillator in me. So I am definitely predominantly a people pleaser, but I do get a little bit of the vacillator traits.
And then, so another one is controller. So a controller is used to a lot of chaos at home. Again, probably linking back to the childhood and how they grew up. Usually, you know, the controller is very finger pointing. So it's usually the other person's fault, and pointing the finger at other things that they can't control, so they point it to that. You know, so again, based on things that happen in the controller's childhood, they are very controlling. You know, they get very angry when something's out of their control or they're pointing blame on it right away. But again, it's usually because of, and we'll wrap it up, I think, with a good statement at the end here, but all goes back to something in the childhood experience, and I think that's really, really important to remember. So I think there's one more, and that's the victim. So You know, a victim is used to, again, chaos at home and intense emotion, you know, and a lot of stuff happened to them, and so they're used to things always being other people's fault as well, and just having that victim kind of mentality of, you know, it's not them, everything happens to them, and they get really angry at that when something even when they're in their adulthood and they're over like what you would think the victim mentality is, but something is hinted towards someone coming down on them or pointing down to them, you're going to see a lot of intense anger and emotion out of them all of a sudden, because that's bringing up some childhood experiences. So I really, you know, we went really deep on the first two to try and explain how important they are. But if that even piqued your interest on the love styles, please read the book. That's something that's really, that's going to give you the best idea. And the Yurkovich, husband and wife, they did an awesome job on it. It really will speak to you, and you'll really, and so they go into great depth. So kind of what you heard on our real example of what an avoider and a pleaser would feel, they'll do that on every love style for you in that book. So if you have an idea, even in this brief video, of what you think you are, I would really recommend you read the book, because it'll help you say, oh, okay, you're a vacillator and a controller. Here's what you're kind of feeling, you know? Have you had this argument before? Have you had this? And that's one of the things, right? It's for somebody to help identify one of the love styles. What's maybe a hint that they can kind of go back to maybe identify that?
To identify what their love
Yeah.
style is? Okay, cut. What?
You were supposed to say, it's the same argument.
The challenges? Oh, the argument one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same argument, same thing that comes up all the time.
Okay. All right. Cut back in. All right. So it's really important to find the core pattern in your marriage.
Right.
So depending on either one of yours styles, you got to find that pattern, and that pattern is something. It's a reoccurring fight. It's that same fight that keeps coming up, the complaint, the fight, or just something that leaves you both frustrated and just angry, even angry at each other.
Yeah, or you're feeling one of those emotions through the love styles. But it's really important to identify, if you do have this, if you're recognizing a pattern, this same thing comes up,
Yes.
and now you just avoid it all the time, that's really good. Like, identify that. That's going to help you lead to your love styles, and talk about what this person's feeling, what this person's feeling in it,
Yeah.
and it'll really help you identify that.
So I could say real quick, our pattern was him coming home and me trying to gauge him right away of how he was feeling, what his emotions were, and him being like, whoa, woman, stop. That was our
Right,
pattern.
right.
Okay.
But that'll really help you identify which one it is, and that's a really good starting point to learning, being aware of yourself, being aware of your spouse, which is really going to help your communication a lot.
And just being aware too, the most challenging relationship you will ever have is with your spouse.
Yeah,
And that's not something that people talk about, especially when you're getting married. It's all this excitement to go and get the dress and get everything ready for this wedding, and everyone's happy for you, but you know, no one ever comes up and say, hey, like, you know, what you're about to do is the most challenging thing. It's the most challenging relationship you'll have, and you gotta be prepared to work at it. So
yeah, it's a relationship, and it takes work, and nobody ever arrives either. You know,
Yeah.
it's always consistently work. You
Yes.
know, and it doesn't have to be bad. Once you become aware of these items, it'll help you identify what's happening in a situation. Okay, how do I need to respond?
Yeah.
Let me take a breath. This isn't the time to bring it up, or is the time. We need to dive in on this, but you know, I think awareness is just the biggest thing that will really help with.
it helps me understand you more. It helps me communicate better with you
Right.
by being aware.
So read your one statement, because I want everybody to understand, you know, they do talk about your past in this book, right? But it's not critical of others. It's just to help understand where you're at, why you try to communicate the way you try to communicate. And Joanne really pulled some out of the book that I think maybe sums it up pretty good.
So the challenges of marriage are directly proportional to the depth of the childhood trauma.
Yeah. And I think it's, and trauma, we're always used to being a really big word, which for some is a big word for something that happened in their childhood. But it doesn't mean that it's something major either. It just means it could be something traumatic for a 3 or 4 year old, right? But it's usually the depth of that influences where you're at right now in your relationship right now. And I think if couples can understand that, right, now it's not, you're not doing this to me because you don't like me or you're upset at me. You're viewing them through these certain lenses of all the experiences that brought her to this point. And if I could understand that more, the more I'm going to understand how I need to respond, how I should respond. Sometimes what she says isn't what I hear, and sometimes if I know that and the experiences, it'll help me hear what she's actually saying a little bit more as well.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
I hope that's helpful. It's a really good book. If you're married out there or you're in a serious relationship, I would say don't stop here, please. That's not our goal. This is not a marriage. In any relationship is an ongoing thing, ongoing learning thing. So don't stop at this video and say, oh, I got it. I know who he is or she is. The idea here is that you get the book. And I mean, we'd love to give everybody the book, but read it and really digest it, because if you do, it will change your relationship. It really will.
True.
Anything else?
I thought of something while you were talking and now I forgot. Let's think. Oh, so give me a second. Let me think of how to. Yes, please do go and try to listen to this or read this book, because in the authors bring in so many stories of people they have counseled. So it's not just show you their style and they're only going to talk about their style. They have so many stories that can relate to anybody.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's it for us today. Oh, gotta do our giveaway. Okay, so last week's book was Power of Habit. We had several comments on our YouTube channel, and probably some more that were on a different medium, but the winner, we put it in this random name generator online. I don't know, I just Googled it and put it in. And the winner for last week was...
Drum roll.
Go ahead. I don't think they can hear it. It's much better. Was Rachel Petropolis.
Yay.
So Rachel just let Joanne know or whatever. If you want to listen to it, or Kindle book, or we'll mail the one that we have that, to my knowledge, still has been free from Gwen. So we'll get that out to you. And then same thing for this week. We'll give away this book. So comment on the YouTube channel your thoughts. What spoke out to you? If you're feeling real vulnerable and transparent, put your love style on there. We love to see. It's just interesting, to see what other people's are. And so we're excited about it. It's done a lot for us, but put a comment on our YouTube channel, and we're excited. So thanks for following along. You guys want to see our terrible view? We'll show you our terrible
Been
view
struggling
here.
with this all weekend. There's even a surfer out there.
He is out there, isn't he? So we've had a good time out here. Thanks for following along.
Thank you.